What happens when a little girl tries to heal a broken dog, only for him to protect her when no one else could? He never barked, never wagged his tail, until the night everything changed. This isn't just a rescue story, it's a bond that will challenge everything you believe about second chances. Subscribe now and witness the moment a child taught a wounded soul how to love again. The house was quieter than usual, even for a Sunday. Outside, rain pattered against the windows like a soft drum beat. Inside, every sound, the creak of a floorboard, the hum of the fridge felt louder, more deliberate. Max hadn't made a noise since arriving 2 days ago. No bark, no whine, not even the shift of claws against the hardwood. He moved like a shadow, present but easy to miss if you weren't looking. Ellie noticed everything. She always had. She'd been watching Max from a distance, the way she watched rain trace lines on the glass or how the wind curled under the door. Quietly, curiously, without disturbing anything. He didn't eat when anyone was in the room. He drank only when the light was dim. And when he slept, it wasn't real sleep, just rest with eyes half open and muscles still coiled, like someone waiting to run. Dana kept her voice soft but steady. She was trying. "Just give it time," she told Ellie, setting down a small bowl of chicken and rice near the edge of the rug. "Don't touch him when he's eating. Just let him figure it out." Ellie nodded, serious as always, but even she could feel it. The distance. Max hadn't wagged his tail, hadn't looked her in the eye. He had accepted the space, not the family. That night, Ellie carried her favorite book, a worn copy of Charlotte's Web, to the living room and sat down a few feet from Max. He was curled into a tight ball near the fireplace, not asleep, not alert, just existing. "I'll read to you," Ellie said softly. "You don't have to listen, but I'm going to read anyway." Her voice was small but steady as she began the first page. She didn't read loudly. She didn't look up to see if he was paying attention. She just read, page after page, letting the words float into the space between them like warm air. Max didn't move, didn't shift, but his breathing slowed. The next day she did it again and again. Every evening Ellie sat in the same spot, reading a different story. Sometimes fairy tales, sometimes books about planets or bears or brave knights. Some nights she didn't read at all. She just sat, cross-legged, letting the silence stretch. Dana watched from the hallway once, arms crossed, her daughter tiny and earnest, and the dog that hadn't blinked in her direction in days. "That dog doesn't even know she's trying," she muttered to herself. But Dana was wrong. Max knew. One night, Ellie brought a small plate of chicken to Max. She didn't place it on the ground like before. She sat down beside it, held out a piece in her palm, and waited. He didn't look at her, but he smelled it. The tip of his nose twitched. Slowly, painfully slowly, Max turned his head, leaned forward, and took the bite from her hand. He didn't snap, didn't flinch, just took it. Not just nibbled, clean. "He's eating again?" she asked, surprised. Ellie nodded. "Only when I sit with him." Dana opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. Instead, she knelt beside her daughter and brushed a curl from Ellie's forehead. "You're very patient, kiddo." "He needs time," Ellie said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Dana looked at Max, still curled in his corner, eyes open, watching. There was something in his gaze now. Faint, but new. Recognition. Ellie reached for her book again. "Do you want to hear about the spider again?" she asked. Max didn't answer, but he didn't turn away either. Dana stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window at the overcast sky. Her hands were submerged in soapy water, but she hadn't moved in over a minute. In the living room behind her, Ellie's voice drifted through the hallway, soft, rhythmic, reading aloud. Again. Dana glanced toward the sound, then back at her phone on the counter. She picked it up, thumb hesitating over a contact before tapping it. "Hey, Rachel," she whispered when the call connected. "You got a second?" There was a pause on the other end. Sure, everything okay? Dana lowered her voice. I don't know. Ellie's still doing that thing with the dog. She reads to him every night, feeds him by hand, he still doesn't wag. Doesn't bark, just watches her. Rachel sounded cautious. Has he done anything? Anything aggressive? No, but that's almost worse. He's so still, like he's not here. There was another pause. Dan, Rachel said gently, you knew he had a past when you agreed, that he'd need time. I know, I think Ellie believes this is going to be some kind of fairy tale, that love will fix him. What if it doesn't? What if he breaks her heart? Again? Rachel's voice was soft but firm. What if it doesn't break her? What if it makes her stronger? Dana didn't answer. She entered the call a minute later, still unsure which version scared her more. That night, Ellie came into the kitchen with a dish of shredded chicken. She moved quietly, with a kind of purpose Dana had seen in very few children. She didn't ask for permission. She just acted, like someone who had already committed to the long road. Are you feeding him again? Dana asked, more softly than she meant to. Ellie nodded. He eats more when I sit close. Dana dried her hands and crouched down. Ellie, you know he might not ever be like other dogs, right? He might never play fetch or roll over. He might never even wag his tail. Ellie looked at her mother, and for a second Dana saw something that made her chest tighten. A kind of quiet wisdom that no 7-year-old should have to carry. I'm not asking him to do tricks, Ellie said. I'm just helping him feel safe. Dana blinked. That's a lot for one little girl. Ellie shrugged. I'm not little to Max. Back in the living room, Max lay in his usual spot near the fireplace. He didn't lift his head when Ellie returned, but his eyes flicked open when he heard her voice begin again. Tonight, she read slower. She paused more often, glancing at him like she was waiting for something. Anything. Nothing came. Still she read. Still she waited. From the hallway, Dana watched the two of them. Her daughter, small but steady, and the dog that hadn't moved in an hour. Something about it unsettled her. Later that night, after Ellie had gone to bed, Dana sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the adoption paperwork still tucked into a drawer. The shelter had said he was safe now, but not suitable for households with young children. Dana had signed anyway. She'd believed in the connection, but now she wasn't sure. She opened her laptop and typed into the search bar, "Signs a rescue dog is dangerous." The screen lit up with articles, red flags, case studies, tragic headlines. She closed the laptop after 5 minutes and buried her face in her hands. The next morning, Max was still curled in the same spot. Ellie came downstairs, hair tangled, book in hand. She knelt beside him, held out a piece of chicken and said, "It's okay. You don't have to smile yet." Max didn't take the chicken, but he didn't turn away either. The storm rolled in just after midnight, announced by a low growl of thunder that rumbled through the walls like something ancient. Rain struck the windows sideways, rattling them in their frames. In her room upstairs, Ellie stirred beneath her blanket, eyes opening wide to the darkness. Another boom, closer this time. Ellie sat up, heart thudding. She was used to storms, but tonight felt different, heavier. She thought of Max downstairs, alone, silent, maybe afraid. She slipped from her bed, toes hitting the cold floor, and tiptoed toward the stairs, book in hand, just in case he needed a story. Dana's door creaked behind her, but she didn't notice. The house was shadowed, the only light coming from the occasional flash of lightning beyond the curtains. Ellie reached the bottom of the stairs and paused. Max was lying near the door, his back turned, ears pressed flat. "Hey," she whispered, "it's okay. It's just rain." Max didn't move. She stepped closer, slowly, like she had a dozen times before. "I thought maybe you'd want company," she said, holding up the book. "You don't have to listen, but I brought your favorite story anyway." The moment her hand touched his back, everything changed. Max jolted upright, his body rigid, teeth bared in a flash of white. A deep guttural growl tore from his throat, so raw it didn't sound like a bark. It sounded like something breaking open. Ellie screamed. Her feet slipped on the rug as she fell backward, her book flying from her hands. The growl stopped instantly. Max froze, ears up, breathing ragged. His eyes met hers, and for a brief, heartbreaking second, they were full of confusion, not rage. As if he didn't know how he'd gotten there. Dana came flying down the stairs, barefoot, wild-eyed. "Ellie!" She scooped her daughter into her arms, shielding her body with her own. "Are you okay? Did he bite you?" "No," Ellie sobbed. "He didn't mean to. He was just scared." Dana turned to Max, who had backed himself into the far corner of the room. He was trembling now, head low, tail tucked so tightly it nearly disappeared. He made no sound. His body spoke for him. Guilt, fear, retreat. "That's it," Dana said, voice shaking. "I'm calling the shelter. I knew this was a mistake." "No," Ellie cried, trying to pull away. "He didn't mean it, Mom. He didn't hurt me." Dana held her tighter. He could have. The storm outside cracked louder, like an exclamation mark. Lightning flooded the room in white. For a second, everyone was a statue, frozen in a moment too big to hold. Later that night, Dana locked Max in the laundry room. It wasn't a punishment, she told herself. It was precaution, for safety, for peace of mind. Max didn't resist. He walked in on his own and curled into a ball on the cold tile floor. Ellie stood outside the door long after Dana had gone back upstairs. She held her book to her chest, silent, small. She didn't knock, she didn't call out. She just sat there, back against the door, whispering into the dark. "I know you didn't mean it," she said. "I know you got scared." Inside, Max didn't move. But his ears turned toward her voice. "I'm still here," she added, even softer. "Even if you never wag your tail, I'll still be here." There was no answer, no thump of a tail, just the distant thunder and the sound of a girl keeping vigil beside a door that was no longer hers to open. The laundry room door stayed closed the next morning. Dana kept her voice low over breakfast, casting glances down the hall like Max might suddenly appear and demand an answer. But he didn't. He hadn't moved from the laundry room all night. Ellie hadn't slept much either. She sat at the table in her pajamas, her spoon stirring a bowl of cereal gone soggy, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Heather didn't bite you," Dana said, almost like a question, "right?" Ellie shook her head. Dana reached across the table, covering her daughter's hand. "Sweetheart, I know you care about him. I do too, but we have to be realistic. If a storm can make him snap, what happens next time?" Ellie didn't answer. She pulled her hand away gently and stood up. That afternoon, the lock on the laundry room was changed. Not harshly, not angrily, just firmly. Dana made sure Max had food, water, a blanket, but she didn't let Ellie inside. Not anymore. "I'm not punishing him," she said. "I'm just keeping everyone safe." Ellie sat outside the door every night. She didn't bring books anymore, she didn't speak. She just sat, knees to her chest, listening to the silence on the other side of the wood. Sometimes she thought she heard Max breathing. Other times she imagined it. Either way, she stayed. Inside, Max lay curled in the same corner, eyes dull, tail motionless. He no longer flinched at noises. He didn't get up to drink. The food remained untouched. Ellie noticed first. "He's not eating," she whispered. Dana frowned. "He'll eat when he's hungry." "But what if he does?" Her mother didn't have an answer. On the fourth day, Ellie did something different. She placed her hand on the door and whispered, "I'm sorry if I broke your heart by trying to love you." She left one of her favorite books on the floor, open to the page where the hero decides not to fight anymore, where they sit down, tired, and let the wind pass through them. She didn't wait for a response. That night, Dana sat in the living room alone. The house felt off balance, quiet but not peaceful. She stared at Max's leash, hanging on the wall like something that belonged to someone who'd left. She got up, walked to the laundry room, and opened the door just a crack. Max didn't lift his head. Dana crouched down and looked at him. "You look like you've already given up," she whispered. He didn't move. The next morning, Ellie didn't sit by the door. She didn't read. She didn't speak. She simply walked past it. Later that day, Dana found the food untouched again. She sat on the kitchen floor holding the bowl in her lap, tears threatening. "I don't know what to do," she said aloud. In the hallway, Max lifted his head for the first time in days. It was almost midnight when the power went out. A loud, sharp pop echoed from the street, the transformer, Dana guessed, blown by the heavy winds. The house went dark all at once, the quiet humming of appliances suddenly gone. Then came the sound of branches scraping against windows, of the wind howling through the trees like a living thing. Dana lit a flashlight and made her way up the stairs to check on Ellie. But Ellie wasn't in her bed. The covers were pushed aside, the window was shaking in its frame, and her book lay open on the floor. Dana's stomach turned cold. She rushed out, calling Ellie's name, but just as she reached the hallway, a heavy gust slammed the bedroom door behind her. It jammed shut with a dull thud, refusing to budge. Dana pushed, twisted the knob, kicked, yelled. "Ellie, open the door." But from inside, the only sound was muffled sobbing. Ellie was curled in the far corner of her room, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped around them. Her flashlight had gone out, and the storm outside made the shadows crawl across the walls. Each thunderclap shook her like a physical blow. She wasn't crying for help. She was frozen. Her mouth moved in small whispering shapes, but no words came out. Then another sound, faint, distant, but growing louder. A bark. Mac. In the laundry room, he had heard her scream, and he was moving. First a paw against the door, then a push, another, then a deep, guttural growl, not of fear, but effort. The latch cracked, the door burst inward. Max didn't hesitate. He ran. Dana, still trapped behind Ellie's door, heard it all. The claws on tile, the heavy body slamming up the stairs. She stepped back as something crashed into the jammed door from the other side. Once, twice. The third time, the hinges groaned and gave way. And there he was. Mac, in the doorway, chest heaving, eyes glowing in the flashlight beam. Ellie looked up. Her whole body was shaking, but when she saw him, she gasped, and her sob turned into a soft exhale. He stepped forward, slowly now, his tail low but not tucked. He crossed the room and lay down beside her, curling his body around hers like a barrier. His head rested gently over her legs. Dana burst into the room seconds later, flashlight raised like a weapon, only to find them already settled. Girl and dog, breathing together, a steady rhythm in the middle of the storm. She froze, her eyes locked on Max. Eshin told. He didn't growl. He didn't move. He just stayed. Ellie reached out, her fingers brushing the top of his head. "Down me," she said, voice hoarse. Dana knelt beside them, her hand shaking as she touched Max's side. "You protected her," she whispered, disbelief cracking in her voice. "You chose to protect her." Max closed his eyes. Not in fear, not in retreat, but in peace. The storm raged on outside, but inside the room, the world was still. Max didn't flinch at the thunder. He didn't need to run, because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't the one being saved. He was the one doing the saving. Morning arrived quietly, as if the storm had carried the world to a softer place overnight. The branches outside still trembled, but the sky was pale blue, streaked with faint clouds that moved like breath. Inside the house, everything was still. No barking, no talking, just the hush of a home trying to remember how to begin again. Dana stood in the hallway outside Ellie's bedroom, staring through the open door. Max was curled at the foot of the bed, one paw stretched toward Ellie's blanket, his chest rising and falling in a slow, even rhythm. He hadn't moved all night. Neither had she. Dana didn't speak. She just watched, her heart caught between awe and fear. Yesterday she had been ready to return him to the shelter. Today he had saved her daughter. She didn't understand it. She only knew it was real. Later, Ellie awoke to find Max still there. His eyes met hers as she stirred, and for a brief moment she hesitated, unsure if it had all been a dream. But he didn't flinch, didn't look away. He just stayed. "Hey," she whispered, reaching out slowly. Her hand touched the soft fur behind his ear. He leaned into it, barely, but enough to be felt. That day, the laundry room door stayed open. Max didn't return to his corner near the fireplace. He followed Ellie, not closely, but not distantly either. He sat near her when she colored, laid outside her bedroom door when she napped. He didn't play, didn't bark, but he didn't hide anymore. Ellie didn't rush him. She read her stories again, some old, some new. She offered small bites of food from her hand, and for the first time, Max took them without hesitation. Dana observed quietly from the kitchen, the edge of her worry slowly dulling into something closer to reverence. The change wasn't fast, it wasn't dramatic, but it was real. One morning, Ellie was sitting at the breakfast table, eating a pancake shaped like a star, her favorite. Max was lying nearby, his head on his paws, eyes watching but not begging. A piece of pancake slipped from her fork and landed on the floor. Without a word, Max stood, walked over, sniffed the fallen bite, and ate it. Ellie giggled. Then it happened. Just once. But it was unmistakable. His tail moved. A short sweep against the tile. Her laughter stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. "Mom," she whispered. He wagged it. Dana turned from the sink, eyebrows raised. "What?" Ellie looked at Max, her eyes wide with something between joy and disbelief. He wagged his tail. Dana walked over, crouched down. Max stood still, watching them both. Ellie reached out carefully and touched the tip of his tail. It flicked again. This time deliberate. Ellie's smile grew so big it almost looked like a new person had stepped into her body. "You smiled," she said. "That's your smile." Max lowered his head slightly, eyes softening. Dana exhaled slowly, one hand on her chest. "I think you're right." That night, as Ellie sat reading beside Max, she didn't need to say much. She didn't need to coax or wait. He was already there, not just in body, but in spirit. He lay beside her with his head on her lap, his tail brushing against the rug every few minutes like a heartbeat she could feel but not hear. As the story reached its final page, Ellie whispered, "You don't have to be the old you. You can be this one, the one who stays." Max didn't wag then. He didn't need to. He was already smiling. For weeks, Dana had moved carefully around Max, like he was a wild animal too polite to bare his teeth. She'd watched him from doorways, spoken in cautious tones, and only trusted the connection between him and Ellie as long as it stayed quiet, small, manageable. But lately things had shifted, not suddenly, not loudly, just shifted. Max no longer flinched when Dana walked into the room. He no longer kept his back to her. He didn't approach, didn't seek out affection, but he existed in the same space, and that, for Dana, was new. One afternoon, as Ellie sat on the porch steps drawing in her notebook, Max lying nearby in the sun, Dana opened the screen door and stepped out. Ellie looked up. "We're making superheroes," she said. "Max is one." Dana smiled and sat beside her. "What's his power?" Ellie didn't hesitate. "He stays." Dana looked at the dog curled on the warm wood, eyes half closed, tail resting across his paws. "That's a pretty good one," she said softly. There was a pause, quiet and sun-drenched. I was scared of him, Dana admitted. Ellie didn't look up from her drawing. I know. Dana's voice was barely a whisper now. But I think I was more scared of what it would do to you if he didn't love you back. This time, Ellie did look at her. You can't make someone love you. But you can still love them anyway. Dana blinked. Her daughter had always been wise, but sometimes it caught her breath in a way she couldn't explain. That evening after dinner, Ellie asked if she could read outside. Dana agreed and followed her into the yard, where Max was already lying near the tree line. Ellie sat beside him and opened her book. Dana sat a few feet away on the grass. It was the first time the three of them shared a moment without walls, doors, or fears between them. The story was about a boy and a bird that didn't speak, how they learned to fly together by trusting silence. Halfway through the chapter, Ellie paused. Mom? Yeah. You want to read the next part? Dana hesitated. The question was gentle, but it felt enormous. She reached for the book. Max lifted his head. Dana looked at him, heart fluttering. Is that okay? He didn't move, didn't look away. She read. Her voice was steady, a little lower than Ellie's, a little rougher around the edges. But Max listened. His body didn't tense. His ears twitched with each page turn. When she finished the chapter, she closed the book and set it on her lap. She didn't expect anything. But Max stood up, walked toward her, and lay down at her side. Close, but not touching. It was enough. Dana let out a slow breath, blinking back something she didn't have a name for. Later that night, after Ellie had gone to bed, Dana lingered in the hallway, peeking into her daughter's room. Ellie was asleep, curled under her blanket, with Max curled beside her bed. Dana stepped in, knelt beside them, and placed her hand gently on Max's back. You part of this now, she whispered. Max's eyes opened. He didn't move, but his tail thumped once, soft against the floor. She smiled, stood, and turned off the light. For the first time since bringing Max home, Dana didn't wonder if she'd made the right decision. She knew. The days that followed settled into a rhythm, quiet, slow, but filled with something new, something soft. Max no longer needed to be called. He followed Ellie naturally now, like her shadow with 4 legs and a heartbeat. He didn't bark, still didn't play fetch or chase his tail like the other dogs at the park, but he was always near, always watching, always present. To Ellie, that was everything. Every morning she greeted him with a whispered, "Good morning, Max," and every night he curled beside her bed like a silent promise. When Ellie returned home from school, Max was already waiting by the door, tail thumping once, then again. Not loud, just enough, just his way. One afternoon, Ellie sat by the window with her notebook, sketching Max. Her drawings had changed. The early ones showed him alone, crouched in corners, eyes hidden. But now Max stood taller in the pictures. His tail was up. His eyes looked forward. He was always drawn beside her. Dana passed by and paused. "You're getting good," she said. Ellie shrugged. "He makes it easy." Later that night, Ellie sat cross-legged on the living room rug, a pile of books around her. Max stretched out beside her like a co-pilot. She was working on her school assignment, write about someone brave. Dana peeked in from the kitchen. "Who are you writing about?" Ellie looked up as if the question surprised her. "Max," she said simply. Dana smiled. "Of course." "But," Ellie added, "not because he saved me." "No?" "No," Ellie said, "because he let himself be saved." Dana stopped mid-step, her breath caught. For a long second she just stared at her daughter, heart swelling with something between pride and quiet sorrow. "It was brave," Ellie continued, "because it's hard to trust again. And he did." Dana walked over and sat beside her. "That's the bravest thing of all." Ellie nodded. "I'm going to read this one out loud, in class." Max raised his head at the sound of her voice, ears alert. "You hear that?" she asked him. "You're going to be famous." He blinked. She leaned forward and whispered into his ear, One day you'll come with me. You'll meet my class. They'll see what I see. Dana chuckled softly. Do dogs get stage fright? Not Max, Ellie said. He's already faced worse. That night, Dana tucked Ellie in and stood at the doorway longer than usual. Max was already curled on the rug, eyes half-lidded, breathing slow and steady. Dana whispered, "Good night, Max." His tail moved once, a soft, subtle reply. She turned off the light. In the darkness, Ellie's voice drifted up one last time. "I think he knows his home now." And Dana, standing in the hall, finally let go of the fear she had carried since the day they brought him home. Not because Max was perfect, but because they had all chosen to stay even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard.